Hey you guys, I'm going to read to you your review book section of part 1 of this week's assignment of May 18th, to read pages 165 to 168 and answer some questions. So here I go. Climate. Oh, and while I read, of course, I'm going to be underlining important information and making some text annotations. Climate. The overall view of regions' weather conditions over a long period of time, tens to thousands of years, is its climate. Bolded word means a definition, means I should underline. Climate is not just average weather, it includes extremes like the numbers of hurricanes and the number of days of damaging hail. The two major aspects of climate are temperature and moisture or water conditions. Temperature and moisture. In terms of climate, two characteristics of the temperatures of a region are most important: the average temperature over the year and the range of average monthly temperatures, often called annual temperature range. This is the average difference between the average temperature of the hottest month and the coldest month, calculated using data for many years. An area's climate is called arid or dry if the average total precipitation during the year is less than the average yearly potential evapotranspiration. Potential evapotranspiration is the amount of water vapor that would evapotranspirate from an area if the water were available. Potential evapotranspiration is largely determined by an area's amount of energy available for evapotranspiration, thus temperature. An average temperature is often determined by the solar energy or insolation it receives. An analysis of figure 8.5 and 8.6 will show the direct relationship between insolation received at Earth's surface and potential evapotranspiration. An area's climate is humid or wet if the average precipitation for the year is greater than the average potential evapotranspiration. Thus, whether a climate is said to be arid or humid depends on the amount of precipitation, but on the difference between the amount of moisture available from precipitation and the potential need for water as determined largely by temperature. As illustrated in figure 8.7, a region can have very little precipitation and still have a humid climate. Regions where the potential evapotranspiration is much greater than what an area receives as precipitation are called deserts. If an area has somewhat equal amounts of precipitation and potential evapotranspiration, the term semi-arid or subhumid can be used to describe the climate. Factors affecting climate. The factors that determine climate include latitude, planetary wind and pressure belts, oceans and other large bodies of water, ocean currents, mountains, elevation, amount of cloud cover, and vegetation. Descriptions of these factors that determine the type of climate an area follow. Often many factors interact to determine an area's type of climate. Latitude and temperature. Latitude is a major factor in determining the climate because of its influence on both temperatures and moisture conditions. Temperature characteristics vary with latitude because of the relationships between angle, intensity, and duration of insolation and latitude. At low latitudes, where the maximum angle of insolation is always high, average temperatures are high throughout the year. Because the duration of insolation is fairly constant at about 12 hours per day, there is little temperature variation during the year. At high latitudes, where the maximum angle of insolation is never large and in some months remains zero, average temperatures are low. Since the duration of insolation varies from 0 to 24 hours a day, and is longest at the times of greatest angle of insolation, temperatures vary over a wide range from winter lows to summer highs. Figure 8.8 is an example of how Earth can be divided into temperature zones largely based on latitude. Latitude and moisture. Moisture conditions vary with latitude because of the location of the planetary wind and pressure belts. Where there is low pressure at Earth's surface, such as near the equator and mid-latitudes, the air rises. The cooling of the rising air results in many clouds, much precipitation, and humid climates. When air falls toward Earth's surface, it creates high pressure, warming of the air, and often arid and desert climates. These conditions result in the belts of arid climates around 30 degrees latitude and around the geographic poles. The map Planetary Wind and Moisture Belts in the Troposphere in the Earth Science Reference Table shows the location of these dry belts and the wet belts. Latitudinal climatic patterns. The combination of temperature and the moisture effects of latitude results in a basic distribution of climate types around the world. Latitudinal climate patterns shown in Figure 8-9. Note that with increasing distance to the equator, increasing latitude, the annual temperature range increases. This is largely because higher latitudes have a greater amount of change in duration of insolation during the year than areas of low latitude nearer the equator. Large bodies of water. Large bodies of water, oceans, seas, and large lakes serve to modify the latitudinal climatic patterns. If a land mass is near a large body of water, its temperatures will be moderated by the slow heating up and cooling off of the water body. This is especially true if the prevailing winds blow toward the landmass much of the year. An area with temperatures moderated by proximity to a body of water is said to have a marine climate. I'm just going to jot down on the side marine climate near a large body of water. Marine climates have cooler summers and warmer winters than inland areas, and thus a smaller annual range of temperatures compared to inland areas at the same latitude. Inland areas away from the effects of large bodies of water have cooler winters and warmer summers and a wider annual range of temperatures. Such areas are said to have a continental climate. The larger a land mass is, and the farther it is from the effects of large bodies of water, the wider the annual temperature range. This is why Central Eurasia has a more pronounced continental climate than North America. Figure 8-9 illustrates the difference in temperatures of regions with continental versus marine climates. Prevailing winds. Movements of air over the Earth's surface that blow in the same direction most of the time are prevailing winds. The planetary wind and moisture belts in the troposphere in the Earth Science Reference Table shows the latitudinal locations of the prevailing winds. Planetary winds on Earth. These belts of prevailing winds are caused by the air pressure difference from unequal heating of Earth by the sun, and the effects of Earth's rotation, the Coriolis effect. Most of the contiguous United States is located in the prevailing southwesterly wind belt for much of the year, which means that most weather conditions move from southwest to northeast. More generally, west to east. The west coast of much of the contiguous United States has much more of a marine climate than the east coast because of the west coast prevailing winds are from the ocean. All right, now let's get to the questions, which start on page 172. First question is number 27. Although New York City is at approximately the same latitude as Omaha, Nebraska, New York City's winter months are warmer and summer months are cooler. Which statement best explains why this is so? 1. The sun's rays shine more directly on New York City in the winter. 2. Nebraska is nearer to the Rocky Mountains. 3. The water around New York City has a moderating effect on the temperature. Or 4. The prevailing westerlies have a greater effect on Omaha than on New York City. Number 29. Which generally has the greatest effect in determining the climate of an area? 1. Degrees of longitude. 2. Extent of vegetation. 3. Distance from equator. Or 4. Month of the year. Number 31. The planetary wind and moisture belts indicate that large amounts of rainfall occur at Earth's equator because air at Earth's surface is 1. Converging and rising. 2. Converging and sinking. 3. Diverging and rising, or 4. Diverging and sinking. Number 33. Which climate conditions are typical of regions near the North Pole and South Pole? 1. Low temperature and low precipitation. 2. Low temperature and high precipitation. 3. High temperature and low precipitation. Or 4. High temperature and high precipitation. Number 34. As the degrees of latitude from the equator increases, What generally happens to the yearly average temperature? Number 36. Which two climate factors are most directly responsible for the amount of snowfall normally received in Buffalo, New York? 1. Ocean currents and storm tracks. 2. Mountain barriers and average temperatures. 3. Elevation and potential evaporation and transpiration. Or 4. Prevailing wind direction and proximity to large bodies of water. Number 39. Bodies of water have a moderating effect on climate primarily because 1. Water gains heat more rapidly than land does. 2. Water surfaces are flatter than land surfaces. 3. Water temperatures are always lower than land temperatures. Or 4. Water temperatures change more slowly than land temperatures do. Number 40. Which is the characteristic of water that helps the oceans to moderate the climates of Earth? 1. Water is a fluid with a high specific heat. 2. Water can exist as a high-density solid. 3. Water can dissolve and transport materials. Or 4. Water can flow into loose sediments to deposit mineral sediments. Number 41. If Lake Michigan were to vanish, the winters in Chicago would probably 1. Remain the same in temperature and humidity. 2. Remain the same in temperature but become drier. 3. Become colder and drier. Or 4. Become warmer and drier. For your last question, you have to turn a couple pages to get yourself to number 17 on page 177. What is the best explanation for the following two statements? Some mountains located near Earth's equator have snow-covered peaks. Ice exists at Earth's poles. 1. High elevation and high latitude have a similar effect on climate. 2. Both mountain and polar regions have arid climates. 3. Mountain and polar regions receive more energy from the sun than other regions do. Or 4. An increase in snowfall and an increase in temperature have a similar effect on climate.